Look at him, man. You got Libby's glasses over here, man. What's going on, man? What
These
is
are my
that?
$2 glasses.
Why they
I don't
have
want
to
to pay a lot of
Why
money.
they had to be that purple though, man?
They came multicolored, bro.
Look at this.
I ordered them from Amazon thinking they were black, and they came like purple,
How
green.
this is black, man? He said he thought this was black.
They came like multicolored, so it's like whatever. They work.
It looks good on you. Go ahead and put that on real quick.
Look at this, man. Look at this.
Oh man.
Well, first of all, they're purple, then they're kid size. They do the job.
Yeah, I thought you took
I'll
your
get there
daughter's
eventually.
glasses, man. Well, tell us a little bit about yourself, man. What do you do here on the Vintage staff?
Yeah, well, I planted Vintage with my wife.
Yes.
Back in 2011.
Wow.
And the kids, we did it together.
Yeah.
And then just been faithfully serving the church since then. And as I guess I'm the lead senior pastor, whatever that means.
There you go.
But yeah. So
senior pastor, y'all.
Yeah. But so just a real privilege. We've got a great team, so I get to kind of lead the team here.
Yeah.
And always seen the team as the main thing. So they're great. Mm-hmm. And we get the privilege of doing this. We get the privilege of helping people discover Jesus. So that's kind of my main role here.
That's awesome, man. Can you give us a little bit of the history and then the vision of Vintage Church?
Yeah, so we planted in 2011. We didn't think we planted a church, but we were in Raleigh, North Carolina.
Okay.
And leading a church there. Mm. And we were asked out of the blue, would we consider planting a church in LA? Mm. And really the vision matched with why we were asked to do it, because the vision was, man, we'd love a church. Someone thought it'd be great to have a church in LA that was at the same time helping reach those who don't know Jesus, at the same time deep integrity to the gospel, biblical orthodoxy, and like spiritual formation, the stuff we love. At the same time, really open to the things of the Spirit in a healthy, humble kind of way. And that was something that's in our wheelhouse. We kind of grew up with that. Yeah. My wife and I met at a church in London that really thrived in those dynamics, and so that's in our DNA. And so we were, when that was the heart behind the church here, we received the phone call and said, would you guys do that? Because that's kind of your wheelhouse. You know, and so we didn't really think about it in the sense of moving to LA. It was never a part of our plans. LA was not somewhere we wanted to be.
Not me either.
Most of this city says that same thing.
I know.
But through prayer and coming to visit, it was really me to begin with. Then my wife kind of also felt that, but we felt that God broke our heart for this city. And I'm the least LA kind of guy out there. I'm an ex-business guy and law guy, and yet I felt God break our heart for the city. So we kind of knew when God does that, Kelly, when God kind of breaks your heart for somewhere, you kind of know, here we go. This is where we're going.
Right.
And so, we arrived 2011 with that vision. You know, my wife and I have a huge heart for those who don't know Jesus. Yeah. A huge heart for those who've been what is called de-churched, hurt by the church. Yeah. At the same time, pulling together in a complementary way, kind of what we call word and spirit. A deep integrity to sound theology, biblical orthodoxy, with a flourishing in things of the Spirit, which remain humble and Christ-like. And so that was kind of the heart to begin with. And we landed 2011. We didn't really know anybody. We had like 2 friends out here at the time. Easter 2011 we started, and we kind of bribed and begged people to come to our launch Sunday, and we had, I think, 20 people in a movie theater in Westwood.
Wow.
And it was terrible. I remember on stage, the launch Sunday, the guy we hired to lead worship had an argument mid-worship with the drummer. You know, it was like, this is the launch Sunday, and everyone's watching them have this massive argument during the worship set. Jeez. So it was like, wow, it was a rough road.
Man. We were suffering for the
I remember someone literally said to me yesterday, oh yeah, I came to visit you guys when you first started, and they're part of our church now, but I said, what did you think? He went, I walked in and thought, you guys will never make it. And it felt like that, but the Lord's hand was on it. And so we kind of stuck at it, and here we are.
I know even the testimony how you even getting into this building is pretty cool.
Yeah. So, I mean, the story behind that is very brief. We, to say it briefly, it's a long story, but to say it briefly, was we'd grown to about 300 in a movie. We'd moved to University High School.
Yeah.
Theater there, about 300.
That's when I first started.
Yeah, that's when you were first there, wasn't it? And so we had said to the church, we never want to get into debt. You know, we don't want to have a huge mortgage, and we want the money to go to ministry. And then I got this email out of the blue from an elder of a church I'd never heard of, who said, would you guys consider merging? And long story short, they were a lovely, probably on the elderly side, small community in this big building. And they had the foresight to go, our pastor is retiring. It doesn't make any sense to call a new pastor with a small group of elderly. They wanted life and young families. And so why don't we merge with a church that doesn't have a building? And so they approached a few churches. They approached us. And there was I spoke to the guy yesterday who I had coffee with who pitched it. And he said, I think we both felt a catalytic moment in the Lord when we met. That we kind of knew that something's going to happen here. It took about a year to kind of talk it through. But the Lord merged us with this smaller community, and we have been together and took over this building. And we really felt, God, you're giving us a base for ministry. Now, this vision of reaching the lost, helping bring back the de-churched, you know, facilitating great conversation with Deconstruction, and Word and Spirit ministry. And we thought this big vision that we now have kind of a bit of the infrastructure for that. And so it's been fun ever since. And we're redoing it every now and again. The building hasn't been refurbished since it was filmed for the movie Father of the Bride.
Father of the Bride, well, it had pink walls.
Pink walls. So it really hasn't had any dime spent on it since then in significance. So we're having to redo a lot, but it's a real joy because the people who built this building back in 1950, they left a legacy that we're reaping the benefits of today. And so we kind of feel, you know, it's our turn. It's our turn to invest in this place for another 70 years of ministry, way beyond we're here. But I can't think of a more important place in the world for a thriving Word and Spirit gospel building than the west side of LA.
You know, I think that's the thing that tripped me out when I first came here. Because I was like going to West LA University High School first. And then I remember the first time I came to they asked me to come to this campus. I was like, oh, there's another campus, you know, like, and I came here. I was like, wow, this is like in the heart of Santa Monica, and when you think about this community and some of the guys were mentioning before how, you know, it's interesting to lead people in this community because it's kind of like a time is money culture, you know, it's like a very busy, fast pace, but. You know, people who are involved into businesses and different sorts and aspects, but it's like, how do you bring the gospel to a community like this that's kind of this family, beachy business, you know, serious.
It's wild, man. It's complex. I'd say it's complex.
Yeah, because there's a little bit of wealth in there.
There's Silicon Beach here now with Hulu, Google, Amazon. You got the surfer dudes. You got the Venice Beach community.
It's crazy, man.
You got the Palisades, kind of wealthy banker lawyer community. It's crazy out here.
It's like a concoction. How do you find yourself able to lead people to Christ in a culture that maybe some of them maybe worship their God might be money or maybe, I don't know, family or whatever it is, like you said, surfing. And how do you bring like Jesus to all these different backgrounds, you know, in a city like this?
I tell you, man, it's beautifully complex. You know, there's no simple model. What it is a firm belief that deep down everyone's hungering for Jesus. They just don't know it yet. The kind of the classic line is still true. They're trying to fill that hole with something else. And in this city, it's really eclectic. It could be yoga, it could be finance, it could be surfing, it could be weed or whatever it may be. They're all trying to fill it with something. And I got a strong conviction is that everyone is trying to fill it, and they're all dissatisfied because nothing quite fills that hole like Jesus, because it's a Jesus-shaped hole, the classic line. And so we want to be in people's lives because we know that hunger is going to keep them trying something else.
Yeah.
Because nothing will fill that hole. And then we talk about the 3 W's, that we want to present the gospel to hungry people with the 3 W's. One is words, really thoughtful presentation of the gospel that answers their intellectual questions, that doesn't undermine them or shame them with their questions, but very thoughtful theology that isn't, oh, well, the Bible says so, just believe it. People really want their questions answered. So we go a long way to help the intellectual answers to faith. But secondly, not just words, but there's also works of love. People, you know this, Kelly, people are lonely in this city, man.
Lonely, man.
People feel unloved. They feel like we don't have authentic friendships. And to feel the love of Christ is a game changer for them.
Yeah.
You know, I think when in the Bible it says, taste and see that the Lord is good, one of the ways they feel the Lord is good in this culture is they taste of true friendship.
Yeah.
That's when they go, there's something different around here.
Wow.
And then so works of love, words of just faithful orthodoxy with a plausibility behind it. And then thirdly, wonders of the Spirit.
Yeah.
You know, people still need to know that this isn't intellectually going to stack up. You're not just a nice person, but they need to go, oh my word.
Yeah.
God just did something.
Yeah.
And I think we need more than ever the power of Jesus to break into people's lives through healings, through prophetic words, through words of knowledge, through whatever it may be. They need to have a wonder, which is what obviously some of the miracles were known as in the Bible.
Right, yeah.
They were wonders. And a wonder is what? A wonder makes someone wonder.
Yeah.
Like, what the heck was that?
Yeah.
And I do think in this culture, we need to lean in just as much as we need to lean into intellectual integrity behind our faith. We also need to lean into the power of Christ being demonstrated in people's lives.
Yeah.
So that they go, oh my word, I just thought this was a philosophy, but there's something real here.
Yeah.
Like a friend of mine, an old mentor used to say, yeah, it's much easier to tell someone about Jesus after they've been healed than before. That's it, isn't it?
Really, and that's how, I mean, that's kind of how he did it too. I mean, he would often perform a miracle and then go into a message.
And some people, you know, I think the de-church and the deconstructing, they need really solid answers to faith because they're not going to buy the glib, the Bible says so anymore. They need to know that suffering, Genesis 1 through 3, what is hell, what is heaven, what about other religions, what about the sovereignty of God? They need some credible, plausible answers to those things. Right. What about genocide in the Old Testament? They're not. We have the deconstruction community, which I really value, are saying, I just don't buy that anymore because those answers, frankly, don't stack up.
Yeah.
And most of them they're right. We can actually give people a healthier theology of these things, which does stack up. But I think most of the non-Christians I know who aren't deconstructed, they're just not Christians. It's less about theology, more about experience, more about, is God real? Yeah. And so we need both. Yeah. You know, we need both the head and the heart and the hands all working together, which is why it's complex. It's why we do stuff like Alpha or Kingdom Comes, because we just want to give a holistic demonstration and experience of the gospel, and you never know where the Holy Spirit's going to move.
Wow.
You know.
Yeah. How important do you feel it is for the church to do life with people, to walk with people?
Well, I think, what people outside the church, you mean? Or people inside the church?
Newcomers, people who are just desperate, in need of relationship. Because I feel like when I look at Christ, he often walked with people and allowed them to walk with him. Right. And I there was like a personal discipleship. And so that was going to be my other question is, where does discipleship fit in? Because it feels like a little bit like the Western church has sort of pushed that to the side because we had other things going on, and conferences and all kind of big productions. And like Ash was saying on an earlier podcast, these kind of like quick ministry fix, things. And so we sort of gotten away from that walking with God, and with each other. So how important do you feel that is for the church? Is that possible post-COVID,
Well, I do think, certainly, if we talk about those who don't know Jesus yet, most need to belong before they believe. Believe is a marathon. There's no quick belief.
No. Yeah.
Even you look at people who raise their hand maybe in a meeting and I believe. There's been a long story before that.
Yeah.
Maybe my mom kind of used to pester me to go to church. Or there's always something. Yeah. Someone's been sowing
that praying
seeds.
grandma.
That's right. There's always a praying grandma.
Prayers of the righteous.
That's right. There's always someone sowing seeds. There's never any quick belief, right?
Yeah.
I do think those seeds, and we have to redefine that word evangelism away from momentary conviction to journeying with people and allowing that journey to take as long as it takes. And so we are recalibrating people's expectations, even around people coming to faith, as a series of mini conversions that may take a while, and to celebrate.
It's a journey.
To celebrate each step of the journey. And I think it's the same thing with discipleship. Not only have we tried to microwave evangelism, we've certainly tried to microwave discipleship.
Yeah.
And we need to get back to most of the metaphors in the Bible for growth are organic, which means it takes a long time.
It does.
And coming out of the charismatic movement, I'm still a card-carrying charismatic, but part of the kind of the weakness of what I grew up in, at least, was because we saw God do instantaneous miracles, we thought that he would also do instantaneous maturity and character development.
Yeah.
I think what we're learning is that the Holy Spirit is behind everything, but his normative way that he grows character, the normative way that he transforms us into the likeness of Christ is process.
Yeah.
And event. Process, not an event.
Okay.
Kind of just, it takes a process. It takes, as my, our buddy John Mark Comer, it's like we have to re-engage with finding the Holy Spirit within the spiritual practices of Sabbath and solitude and scripture and worship and community. There's no shortcut to discipleship. And I think part of the problem with the church is we've tried to shortcut because everything in life is about shortcut. Now our phone, we don't have to make any food, we can just Postmates it, right?
Yeah, microwave. We call it the microwave generation. We want it in 5 minutes or less.
And so, I think we have to re-engage with process, not only with evangelism, the journey, but also with discipleship. And it's a joy to reset our expectations around that because then the pressure's off.
Yeah.
The kind of the cheap results that we try and share. Like I don't track any results for Alpha, right? People go, well, how many people came to Christ on Alpha? I go, well, sure, I love that statistic, but the real measurement is how many people moved closer towards Jesus on Alpha. Because it's a journey, bro. And I found it really hard to track that. But when you're in Alpha with whatever hundreds of people we have, we see that journey, we see that progression, we see people softening to Jesus.
Yeah.
And we have to recalibrate our discipleship around that as well. We have to go, you know what? I once was angry, but I'm less angry now. But it took a year,
Or I didn't believe in God.
Yeah.
I remember when I was an intern here, helping out with Alpha, we saw some atheists who was like a group of atheists who
totally
didn't believe in God, but all of a sudden one day asked John Thomas, who was associate pastor at the time, they asked him could they lead a Bible study group with their other atheist friends.
It's
and
amazing.
They ended up coming to church Sunday morning. It just kind of was this constant progression of like, wow, I think they believe now.
I love it. I mean, there are kind of these prescribed journeys. It's like milestones that people hit.
Yeah.
They start out an angry atheist. Then you, Kelly, certainly. Oh, but you're the first Christian I like. So they like a Christian. Then they start to listen to a Christian. Then they start to trust the Christian. Then they start to want what the Christian has. And you just can't shortcut that journey.
Yeah, it's a progression.
And it's different with the deconstructing, right? The deconstructing already have a lot of the framework there. They love Kelly already. but it's the people who've never been to church, or the people who are kind of never raised in this environment, that we have to go on the journey with them.
Yeah, I'm realizing that. I had some friends I'm an actor too as well. And
you're everything, Kevin. You're my hero, bro.
No, come on, man. I feel like everybody's an actor in LA. It's like your waiter's like, oh, here's your food. By the way, here's my headshot.
And here's my script.
Yeah, right. Here's my script. You're like, okay.
Here's my short film.
This is like a cultural thing. But yeah, there was an actor on one of the films I was in, and he was the villain of the movie. But we became like really good friends, and we had really deep conversations because he was in like Germanic runes and doing all this kind of cultural stuff on set, that he believed in, and then I would just talk about God, what I believed in, and then he was like, my life always circles back around to God. Like it always comes back around. I go through all these different religions and these practices, but then like God always comes back into the center of the conversation. And so, make a long story short, I told him about Vintage, and it wasn't until a year later after the premiere, he texted me and said, hey, remember those conversations we had on set about God and things like that? And I said, yeah. He said, I really miss that, and I want to have more of that in my life. And he was like, can we reconnect and talk about God more? And I was like, yeah, sure, know. And I think I was interning at that time when it happened. And then he also said, do you still go to that church in Santa Monica by the water? I said, yeah. He said, can I come? I said, yeah.
That's amazing. That's so
that was like a year and something span of time. And so sometimes it's a progression, man.
It's a progression. And I think even the disciples, we had to look at Jesus was hanging out with them for 3 years. And, one of them failed miserably.
Yeah.
Peter didn't think the gospel was for the Gentiles until later on. And,
yeah.
It's a progression. And we have to embrace that. And I personally now find the joy in the journey of seeing people journey.
Yeah.
I'm not so obsessed as I used to be about closing the deal too soon.
Yeah.
Winning another soul and ratcheting up like no, it's the journey is the joy.
Because as quickly as they get saved, they can also fall away. And, you've also seen that where like, these people get saved, but then there was nobody there to walk with them, so then they were back in the same situation again.
Yeah. No, you got to embrace it. I mean, even like when people give their life to Jesus, which we see, which is beautiful. I say it's like the NICU, it's like the neonatal intensive care unit. These guys are little baby Christians, born again, but they need still everything. They still need nurturing, and they still need a community to surround them. I mean, a friend of mine on Alpha who came to know Jesus, she was a Buddhist beforehand, and she became a Christian, which is so excited. She met Jesus, so excited. She could not handle the church though, because it's too foreign. She didn't know what do we sing? I didn't know what, go to a community group.
Yeah.
She said she visited. It was like, I didn't know what to do. I felt so stupid.
Yeah.
So she stayed in like the Alpha universe for about 3 years.
Okay.
Until she was like one of my leaders on Alpha. And then eventually she felt like, I now feel equipped to go into the church. We just don't, we forgot what it's like if you're not a Christian to walk into a church where the language, the unwritten rules, the unwritten expectations, you just got no idea.
Yeah, somebody told me that actually. They felt like it was overwhelming. Some friends that I knew, and they started coming here, and they did tell me, they said at first it felt a little overwhelming.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so that's it. You forget that, all the Christianese and the sayings and things that you use. They're like, what's that? Like
it's so foreign. It's a different language. It's so foreign. But that's why the community, the Catholics still say, the church is the mother church. It nurtures people, and I think that's where we're leaning into significantly. The church is a mother. The church is really nurturing and raising Christians.
That's really good. Is evangelism dead, or has it evolved and taken on a new face?
In culture or in vintage?
In church, in general. Yeah.
Well, I think no one likes the word evangelism, right?
Yeah.
Where everyone hates it.
Yeah.
I think we all want our friends to come to know Jesus, but we don't want to evangelize our friends.
Yeah.
And so in that sense, evangelism is dead because...
Or like the streets, like going out. Remember back in the day was going out to the streets and knocking on doors on Saturdays and all that,
Man, we've done some of that stuff. I can see the scars. The wounds.
I was like,
you're being triggered already.
My mom dragging me out
No,
there.
man, we've done all of that. No, well, I say the heart and the calling and the mission to tell others about Jesus is still I think is still in our hearts as much as it's always been.
Yeah.
But what we have is a problem of methodology. We think we know the old methods don't fit our cultural moment.
Okay.
And so we are paralyzed because all we're left with is, well, I invited my friend to church, but they don't even want to come to church, or a sermon's not going to help them. They won't understand the sermon. So we've got this hang up with how do we help folks, our friends, who are so far away from Jesus, come toward him. And if we try the old methodology, it's going to hinder, not help. I mean, no one wants to hear a street preacher anymore.
Yeah.
No one wants to see me dancing on the street to a choreographed worship team thing.
Yeah.
I mean, no one at the time wanted to see that anyway.
I might want to see that. I'm just saying. I mean,
it certainly hindered. It did not help. And I think what we're trying to reinvent evangelism is go, let's help the church with methodologies that fit this cultural moment, where it's conversational, not preaching, where it's asking questions, not proselytizing, where it's journey, not moment, where it's safe area, not coming into a church building, where it's love and not just target practice. So that's why, again, Alpha is one of those tools. I'm sure there's some others as well. And I find that people need to channel their heart for others into these new methodologies. And when I found them out, dude, like you, I used to do questionnaires on the street. I used to preach on the street. We mimed on the street, all the
tracks.
Oh, my word. The day I found Alpha, not only was I excited, I sighed a huge sigh of relief. Because I knew I didn't have to do that anymore.
Yeah.
I did not have to shout at people on the street anymore. I didn't have to get heckled on the doors anymore.
Yeah.
I could just bring my friends to this incredible evening, and they loved it.
Yeah.
They loved it.
It's pretty cool.
It was no judgment, no pressure. It was friendly. And so I was a lawyer at the time. I just kept bringing my colleagues to Alpha every semester. And they loved it. I say, hey, Alpha was the first time the person being evangelized enjoyed the process. Because normally they hate it, right? They're kind of feeling they're sold something. And so I think evangelism's not dead. I think the methodologies, some of them need to be kind of put down. And we need to retool the church in America for this cultural moment. And I think some churches are still trying to do the old ways. And I think sometimes it works because, again, I differentiate between the lost and the deconstructing. There's totally two different audiences.
There is, yeah.
And so if I would invite a deconstruction person to church, and we preach, hopefully, in a way that helps them. But the lost need a process, a journey. And I think the deconstructing love Alpha as well. But I also think, Kelly, if I may be so bold, I also think we are in a bit, talking to people, there's a bit of a hangover, a cultural reaction to the seeker-sensitive movement. Where Christians generally go, enough already with non-Christians. What about us? They go, man, what about us? We feel underfed. We want more of the Spirit, or we want better teaching, or we want better spiritual formation. One of the three. If you're at Vintage, you probably want all three to make it more complex. But generally people go, enough of the seeker-sensitive. I just want to rest. I just want to go to a church which is about soaking the Spirit. I just want to go to a church where the theology is amazing. I want to be fed. So there's become this either-or-ness in America. And I think it's a lot of it because people have been underfed. And so they're going, don't tell me about evangelism, because if you do talk about evangelism, that means we have to sacrifice depth. They see it as mutually exclusive. And so what we're trying to do is go, they don't have to be mutually exclusive. They should never be mutually exclusive. We should always have a church that is not only wide, but deep. And we are trying to Vintage clumsily, and I'm sure others are doing it much better, but we're trying to go, how do we feed Christians with the depth of Christ? The integrity of the Spirit. But reach the lost like mad.
So that was going to be my question for you later, was how do you walk the line of reaching out to the lost and, having that evangelistic heart, in discipling, but for the mature Christians who need more steak and potatoes, like how do you provide milk for the newcomers, but then still the steak and potatoes for the mature ones who are longing to go deeper? Because that can be a very tough line to follow. I mean, a tough line to kind of hold together, because there's a lot of churches out there who, we know certain, churches like Hillsong. When I first came here, they were like, yeah, if you're looking to go deeper, maybe not that one. Hillsong is like, they reach like 12 to 1,300 new believers like every Sunday or something like that. Some crazy number when I first moved here to LA. And I was like, wow, it's amazing. And I checked it out and was like, oh, this is cool. But yeah, everybody has these different churches for different things. But how does like one church just kind of keep it all together where you can do it, find that like that fine line to walk,
Totally, man. Well, I think it's tough. So if you have any answers, let me know.
Yeah.
What we're clumsily trying to do is a few things. I think firstly, we're going to embrace the tension. Mm-hmm. We're just going to go, you know what? We're not going to get it always right. Mm-hmm. I don't think the early church always got it right. So Paul wrote in Corinthians, man, you guys are killing it in things of the Spirit, but don't forget there's non-Christians in the room.
Yeah.
The tension's always been there.
Yeah.
So I think what I don't want to do is first of all go, let's get rid of the tension and be one or the other.
Yeah, right.
I do think the early church is modeling to us that we just have to embrace the tension and we'll never get it right. But like Paul is going, don't stop things of the Spirit, but maybe take it in turns, maybe interpret, I think we're trying to manage the tension. And so there's a few things that we're not going to dilute our hunger. I mean, we don't feel we can just select one. We want to be the church of Jesus Christ, which is to be like him, to be with him, and to do the things that he did. And we don't feel that we can go, well, we want to be like Jesus, but not that bit. So, but saying that, practically we do a couple of things that help us. The first thing is we take the evangelistic burden off of a Sunday and put it onto a Tuesday night with Alpha.
Can you really quick? Can you expound on Alpha for some of the people who don't know what that is that are watching? Just briefly tell us.
Briefly, I mean, to put it into a small nutshell.
Yeah.
Alpha is a Bible study for non-Christians.
Okay.
8 weeks Bible study for non-Christians, which non-Christians love, and it's a safe space to ignore, kind of come with your questions. No shame, no judgment, no preaching.
Okay.
And it's mostly full of non-Christians.
Yeah.
And they explore Jesus at their own pace. But it means that we can take the evangelistic burden, certainly of preaching, off of Sunday.
Yes.
And say, hey, if you're exploring faith, come to Alpha.
Yeah.
It means that we can then say on Sundays, look, we're going to really prioritize feeding the church. In some great worship and carrying of his presence, and I try at least put some meat on the bones of the preaching. Yeah, that Christians go away that's really solid. Yeah. But then what happens is, I think the teaching normally goes. Most people go, okay, that fed me. Yeah. Evangelistically, okay, I need to probably go to Alpha for that. That's great. I'll bring my friends to Alpha. I think the charismatics normally look at our Sunday and go, oh, almost, but not enough, which I totally get. Yeah. It's good. Dude, we have to be like an hour and 20 minutes because we're doing multiple services with kids who are desperate to get out. And we do have non-Christians in the room who, I like to swan dive in the Spirit as much as anyone, but we try and, as Paul says, we're trying to restrain ourselves a bit for the sake of the non-believer. Yeah. So that's why we do Kingdom Comes. Monthly, we do Kingdom Comes where we can all fire tunnel it to our heart's delight, and because I think it's okay to say, it's okay to emphasize different things in their intensity in different venues. We don't have to do everything in the same venue at the same time. It's okay to go, look, we're going to put the evangelistic burden on Alpha. We're going to really press into the Spirit with no hindrance, no time limit at Kingdom Come. Sunday's going to be a bit more of a balanced meal. And that's what Jesus did, right? Jesus sometimes spoke to the crowd. He sometimes spoke to the disciples. He sometimes just spoke to the inner three. It's okay not to be everything all at the same time. But yeah, and that means sometimes I go away from something like a Sunday going, oh, we could have gone on forever. But it's like, you know what? I prefer others in the room to me. So I prefer the mum and the kid who's kind of like the kids go, Mum, I've been in kids ministry now for an hour and a half. You need to come get me. And I prefer the non-Christian to go, man, I felt there was something beautiful in this service today, but he wasn't seeing manifestations or things or singing for an hour and a half. It was too much for him. Yeah. There's just this fluid tension of these different desires to honor others in the room, but not dilute who we are.
Wow.
Now, Kelly, we got a long way to go on that, right? And then formation we'll put into groups, right? We'll put into groups, and we try our best, and I think we'll never get it right. And some days I wake up and go, man, we're killing it in seeking the lost. Yeah. But we're not on like seeking the presence right now. So you'll see me go, right, for next season, we need to really press into worship more. It's never we hit the bullseye. Right,
yeah. And it's tough to, like you said, because, it's a tough line to walk with, like, hey, I mean, we're here to be salt and light in the earth. We're here to be in the world, but not of it. And so we're here to be the aroma of Christ, the hands and feet of Jesus. And so we're here for the lost, but also, the folks who once were lost, but now are like maturing in the Lord.
Well, Jesus said, go make disciples, not converts.
That's right.
Go make disciples. And so we have to start with what I call the angry atheist. And I say that lovingly because all my friends growing up with that, they really didn't like religion, but I love them to pieces. But then we have to disciple people, not just to conversion, but to maturity. Yeah. And I'm personally, as you know me, mate, I'm probably going to bias just my own strength to the kind of the pre-conversion. It just means we've got incredible people around Vintage who kind of can take the baton on from me and disciple people all the way to Kelly level maturity.
Yeah, man, I think that's the way. I feel like we need that, especially in this hour of the church. More people are like hungry and desperate. Right. Post-COVID, I think, what do we have, like almost like 90% of the congregation was just like non-believers or something like that? Right. So when you have that situation, you have to answer the call. It's like there's just a call and a mandate where it's just obvious, like, So I understand it. Yeah, I've heard people say, well, it just wasn't enough for me. And so, being a part of this church for a while, you see people come and go, and it's a bummer. You're like, oh man, but you also see what the Lord is doing, and you want to honor that, and so, I do understand, every day you're just trying to figure out, how to toe that line,
Yeah. And ultimately we know that if you come to a church, you're probably going to bring a set of needs, like a set of hunger that you have. Yeah. And we are trying to probably do something a bit different than what most people are looking for. Yeah. I want you to be really strong in this one area. Don't really care about the rest. I really want great charismatic worship. I really want great teaching. We're trying to do a lot of it. And therefore, if you're looking for, I want like black belt in this, well, a church to be black belt in that has to sacrifice other things to be black belt in that. Yeah. And so great. And I've got a long list of churches. I go, hey, if you're looking for that, then you've got three options. Yeah, right. For Vintage, our vision is we're trying to do, all the way, all ages, at all levels of the journey. Yeah. And that means we're not going to concentrate on one thing. Yeah. That means we've rejected simple church as a model, kind of pick your one thing and do it really well. I just think I don't feel we can. Yeah. So therefore we compromise on some depth in some areas, and I'm saddened by that. And I go, it's a reminder when someone says, man, it wasn't quite enough. I go, probably, but help me grow that, and as a church, we're still young. We're 9 years old, 10 years old.
It's very true, yeah.
But saying that, I'm at great peace going, He's in control. It's his church. He's building his church, and
Amen.
we're just celebrating the fruit, what we do see.
Yeah. And it's beautiful fruit, man. It's like this church has been more diverse than I've ever seen it. It's ever growing.
Isn't the diversity great? We're getting there, bro.
Every Sunday I show up, I'm like, holy cow.
Praise
I've met people
Lord.
from like Zambia, Tanzania, like just all Germany. Like it's insane. Like it just feels like one of the most colorful churches I've seen in LA.
We're very excited.
Yeah, it's God's doing something so powerful, so I'm super excited, man.
Well, you've been a big part of it, man. You've helped build this place. And so you're part of the foundation, bro.
It's an honor to serve, man. Switching gears a little bit, because I know you got to go.
No worries.
What are you most passionate about in life, and why?
What am I most passionate about in life, and why? Well, I mean, obviously, I want to say first and foremost my family. Love my wife. She's this crazy, beautiful, wild Australian.
She's amazing. Yeah,
and she brings the fun into the universe.
I want to hear her speak more. Can we get her?
All right, let's do it.
That would be incredible, man. She's amazing.
She's awesome. My kids are great, and so, and I think ultimately, what Lizzie and I have both said is we want to make the most out of life. I mean, Jesus came to bring life and life to the full, and we believe in that holistic. There is no sacred spiritual, non-spiritual divide. What's it? Sacred and secular divide. All of life is His creation.
Amen.
And we planted this church, and that can be all-consuming. I tell you, we really want to press into living into His good creation and enjoying it and feasting with friends and discovering and a life lived well, man. That's what I think we're really leaning into. I think as a pastor, we can just ignore that a bit and focus in on just the spiritual church, building the mission and tracking attendance and all that kind of stuff. And in this next season, I think the great testimony is life lived with Jesus is far better than anything else.
Amen.
And so that's our passion right now. You know, is showing that it's better with Jesus.
Yeah.
You know, and that's simply it. You know, and so people say to me, "Ger, what's your 5-year vision?" I go, "Fun."
Yeah.
You know, I want to live life with the Jesus way and discover that life is abundant with Him. And that's even in the sufferings, right? That's even in the hard times. You know, I don't believe following Jesus puts us on the easy road. It puts us on the narrow path. But I believe that road, if you look, even on Paul in prison, he's singing, he's worshiping, because life lived with Jesus, even at the highs and the lows, is better by far. And so I think that's one. And then the second thing is, I bleed for people who don't know Jesus. I just bleed. I'm devastated at people who've been hurt by the church. I'm disappointed with people who feel the need to deconstruct because they've only been ever given terrible answers to really important questions. I'm saddened for people who are trying to live life through the lens of leisure, pleasure, treasure, and not through the lens of Jesus. And so ultimately, and I tell you, Kelly, I'm not one of those guys who goes into a coffee shop and tells people about Jesus easily. But I want to equip the church that we all have 5-6 friends. We all have 6 friends who God's placed us within their sphere of influence and the relationality that we can start to be the aroma of Christ, salt and light, and maybe hopefully bring them to alpha. And for me, I wasn't a pastor until I was 35. So for many of those years, my 20s, well, all my 20s, I was in the marketplace. And I felt called to the marketplace to be salt and light, to see the renewal of the industry I was in, to help my friends come to know Jesus piece by piece. And that is ultimately what I felt when I was called to ministry. I felt God say, I want you to equip the church to what you've been learning this last 12 years. And so I still want to go, we got a mission. You know? That mission, and it's not me, it's not the experts or the extroverts. being the crazy evangelist is every single one of us being alive to the opportunity that God has placed us in to love people well, to be friends well, and when they're hurting, to be there for them, and when they're questioning, to help them find Jesus.
Yeah. Wow.
Still, man, I'll go, and if the church fires me, I'll just be running Alpha down Venice Beach, because that is ultimately what I love doing.
I love that. Yeah, that's always been your heart, man. I've noticed that it's like for the lost, and that's been an incredible thing to see, because I feel like a lot of churches sort of, well, at least Western church, because I know I have friends out in the mission field in India, and I just hung out with Heidi Baker and just hearing how they.
Oh, I love Heidi.
Oh my gosh, I'm going to try to get her on the podcast next, but I had one of the most profound conversations with her during Benny's memorial, and it was all about the lost and how they're doing church, how they're switching things up, going more with the discipleship, what the result that they're seeing from that. Yeah, and so it's
beautiful.
In other churches, outside the Western church, you see that still, but in the Western church, we sort of gotten a little bit away from, I feel like, evangelism a little bit, and so I always loved seeing you kind of burn for that, because it kind of made me burn for that more. Oh yeah, this is very important. And also realize man, I've gotten away from that myself. I can talk about it because I'm like, man, I haven't valued it. I used to be on the Night Strikes team, a part of Bethel.
Wow,
where we hit the streets.
Amazing.
I even led a drum team, and we would go out and do drum circles, and we got invited to super new age festivals because people were ministered to through our drumming, and we would speak in tongues and drum.
Wow.
And the power of God would show up. We saw witches fall, warlocks fall.
Wow.
We've had dancers say they saw light coming out of our drums, and they saw angels around us. And so I was like, man, I used to be heavy into this evangelistic kind of flow, and then somehow I just got away from it, And I think, I love seeing your heart, and it reminds me of what we're supposed to be doing, So.
Well, hopefully, my hope is that we can help make evangelism easy and part of everyday life again.
Yeah.
It's not so much anymore about doing event-based evangelism, but hey, man, have you got a friend? Great. Well, learn how to be a great friend.
Okay.
Learn how to love them well.
That's really good.
Don't separate yourself out into Christian bubbles. Just live life well with great friends.
Yeah.
And be the aroma of Christ in that context.
Yeah.
And then all I'm asking you to do is, when the time is right, bring them to Alpha.
They're like, okay, I can do that.
Well, we want everyone to feel about evangelism. It's time that we equip the church, when they think about evangelism, to give them the way to do it, that they simply say, oh, I can do that. What we've done the last 20 years is only told them ways of doing it where they go, I'm not doing that.
Yeah. Stand up on the soapbox.
That's like social suicide.
3rd Street Promenade and preach the gospel.
So that's the key.
Yeah.
The church want to reach the lost. They just don't know how without ruining their friendships.
I agree. 2 rapid fire questions before you go. You're stranded on an island with your Bible, and you can only bring 3 additional books with you. What would those 3 books be?
Anything that Bear Grylls has written to help me survive.
Bear Grylls. Oh my
God. Which snake I should eat and not eat. Which books would I bring? Yeah. I'd probably bring so the Bible. Gosh, there's so much choice there, bro. I'd probably bring can I the trilogy of Lord of the Rings. So that's one book, right? That's one book.
Yeah.
I would then bring something by Ruth Haley Barton.
Okay.
Just as a devotional, just to keep my soul alive. And then thirdly, I'd probably bring a book about Formula One racing. just to dream of the days I could watch Formula One.
Oh my gosh. I didn't realize you were into Formula One racing.
Oh man, grew up with it.
Dang.
Avid. Love it.
That's so
I'm not a Hamilton fan though, so I know people would think that, but.
Okay. Yeah. Wow. And then last question, what is something that you can share with people out there who may have lost faith or hope in Jesus?
Well, first of all, man, I truly understand how that can easily happen. I did. I was hurt by the church. I left the church. I never wanted to see a pastor again. Yeah. And so I know the wounds can go deep, the disappointments, the expectations, the abuse of power. And so I first of all want to say, I get it. I get it. And Jesus gets it. He wept over people who rejected him. And so I want to just say I get it. Secondly, I'd say there's hope because Jesus weeps with you. But we can get disillusioned with the church and faith, but Jesus still holds the truth. He still stacks up to intellectual scrutiny, and most importantly, he is good and beautiful, despite what the church maybe puts on him. So I would invite people, don't throw away Jesus.
Yeah.
It's okay to be hurt and angry at the church maybe and other things, but don't throw away Jesus. Because if you look at him, you will see the most compelling human that has ever walked this world. And he's that compelling because maybe it's true that he was more than just human.
Wow. That's so good, man. Well said. I love that. Well, thank you so much for coming on.
A real honor, mate.
And yeah, we'll have to do some more of this. It would be nice to do a segment where we talk about the deconstructing the gospel kind of movement that's happening.
Yeah, it's so important to talk about that.
I think so. So I've had friends who used it but then fell away. They're no longer walking with the Lord. And then I have friends who are doing it. We actually had a girl on the podcast who's doing it with the purpose to draw closer to Jesus. And so there's a crew doing it in Chicago. And so it's really fascinating to hear the different forms of it. But it'd be nice to expound and do an episode just on
That'd be great. I love it. I think it's the most important journey. It can be a beautiful journey.
It can be, yeah. So,
but it can be destructive.
Yeah. There's the different sides of it. So let's break that down on another one. And but I just want to honor you for coming on the show. And,
well, you are the best, mate. We love you dearly.
I love you too, man. And have a great day. We'll have you back on soon. So.
Thank you.
All right, bless you, Ger.
Love you.